Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Shallow End. I'm Dave. Thanks for being here. You might have a question. You might be looking at the title of this episode, 2025 National Recap. And you might be asking, was it the National almost 2.5, 3 months ago? It's almost October. The National took place in July. And that would be the right question to ask. The next question to ask would be why? Why is it taking so long for this guy to get his national recap out? And the reason why is because of a card that I picked up there that was raw, that was waiting to get back from PSA before I could do the recap. Because overall, my experience at the National is very much contingent upon how this card did at PSA. So I'm just going to walk through it pretty quick. If you're listening to this, I will talk in detail. If you are watching it, I will be holding up pictures of the cards so you know what I'm doing here. First, some background. I went into the National, as I usually do, with a list of cards that I wanted, but it was a little bit more loose than normal. So when I went 2 years ago for the first time in 2023, I had this plan to get rid of my entire Nolan Arenado Topps Chrome Gold out of 50 run. And then last year in 2024 in Cleveland, my goal was to pick up a 1948-49 Leaf Jackie Robinson rookies. And I accomplished both goals in 2023 in Chicago, 2024 in Cleveland. But it was a little bit stressful because it was so rigid. I had to get this thing done. So I made a list of a bunch of cards that I wanted this year. A lot of baseball, some basketball. So I had two cards really at the top of the list that I was looking for, but it was still pretty loose. So I had about 20, 30 cards on there. But the top two were one was a 1948 Bowman Stan Musial, and the other was a 2016 Rittenhouse Brianna Stewart rookie card. So I was there for 2 days. I was there for Wednesday and Thursday. I did have a ticket for Friday and ended up not using it. I had some family in town, ended up leaving Friday morning instead of Friday evening, which was the original plan. I was really lucky to have two amazing roommates for the National. One was Greg, who was at Paper and Chrome. He's been on the show a couple of times. The other is Mark, who's at MJS Sports Cards. He's also been on the show a couple of times. Just could not have asked for better folks just to hang out with for a couple of days. Good dinners, good talks, good times, good all around. I'm just going to get right to it, and I'm going to talk about the cards that I picked up. And overall, I picked up 8 cards at the National of varying degrees of cost and sport. So overall, I ended up finishing with 6 baseball cards and 2 basketball cards. The first, I walk in, and everything that you heard about the lines being bad were true. But we got there early enough on Wednesday that we didn't get stuck in the lines. And I guess the lines didn't really get bad until Thursday. Anyway, we went upstairs, got our wristbands, and then off we went, waited in line for a few minutes because we were there a few minutes early, and inside we went. The first place that I went was John Brogie's table. He is a wonderful WNBA dealer, and I went there looking for the Brianna Stewart rookie, the 2016 Brianna Stewart rookie card. There wasn't one, not the one that I wanted anyway. I think there might have been an auto in there. I'm not really an auto person, and I didn't see the other card that I wanted. So, okay, whatever. But I did find this. And so my first pickup, I had 3 pickups on Wednesday, and I had 5 pickups on Thursday. The first pickup on Wednesday was a 2001 Fleer Ultra Lauren Jackson. Lauren Jackson is a 3-time WNBA MVP, multiple-time champion. You know, she's one of just 2 or 3 people who have won 3 MVPs, and she won them like 9 years apart between the first and the third one. She's just fantastic. And so one of the things that I'm trying to add to my basketball collection are multiple time MVP winners from the WNBA. And so I was really, really excited to see this in John's case. From there, I was just kind of wandering around, and I was really looking for my 48 Bowman Stan Musial. And I wasn't seeing, I was seeing some, but they were either not attractive to my eye in the way that I wanted it to be, or they were too expensive. Ended up just kind of going through some value boxes and talking to some people who I was able to see, which was really wonderful. And as I'm going through the value box, One thing that I came across here was a 2007 Bowman Heritage Black Parallel out of 52 of Jim Edmonds. I'm a Cardinals fan. I love this set. I didn't know I loved this set. I had seen a guy named Bill. He used to be Ephus Pitch, and now he does the Hobby Sentinel. But he posted one of these cards a few months before. I'm like, oh, that's gorgeous. And I started looking for an Albert Pujols version, but one had not sold in more than a decade or something like that. So whatever. But as I'm going through this value box, this was in there for $10 or $15. And anyway, I think I offered 10 for it and it got accepted. So this was a great, fun little pickup here. What a great parallel. Bowman Heritage was not around for very long. You know, Topps Heritage can draw on 70 plus years of cards and counting. But Bowman Heritage, they're only, I think they're only 8 years. It was 48 to 55 is when Bowman Prime was sort of around. And so there wasn't a lot. And so the set did not last for very long. And so this is one from 2007. From there, I was just still kind of going through boxes. And it was a great box. It was a vintage dealer. They had mostly vintage, but some modern as well. But they had a value, and I'll put value in quotes, value box of $25. They were all numbered cards. And they were not like modern number cards. We were not looking at orange flash out of $3.99 Panini cards, but these were numbered cards going back into the late 90s. And most were players I didn't care about. But I was just talking about Bowman Heritage, and I found this card. And I didn't know what it was. I'm going to show it here. It's Chris Carpenter. And I collect Chris Carpenter, a Cy Young winner for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I see it. And it, of course, modeled after the 1955 Bowman set with the TV around it. And I'm looking at it, and you can't really tell, but man, this card is busted up. And the whole card is faded. And I look at the back, and it's out of 25, and it's 25 out of 25. And the thing is I love this because I have no idea what this card is. It's out of 25. It's from 2004 Bowman Heritage. But I just buy it. And it was listed for $25. I offered $15, hoping to pay $20 for it, but they accepted it. And that was great. And then I just went and I sat down for a minute trying to look up this card. And I know that there are more experienced collectors who know what this card is. I found out later, but I didn't know. It's a 2004 Bowman Heritage Mahogany out of 25. And apparently there's two things about this card that are interesting, this set or in this parallel. One is that it was really sought after at the time. Like there were people really trying to collect all of these parallels. And then the other part of it is apparently they all go really bad. Like the surface of these cards, they fade. So it's natural for it to look like this. I loved adding this to my Chris Carpenter PC. I thought that my Carpenter page in my binder was done, but I added this and then ended up pulling one out of there. And this is just nothing that I really expected. It was great. And that was it. And that was it for day one. So really, I had minimal damage to my wallet at this point. The first national I went to in 23, I was only there for a day. I got there the night of trade night and then had a full day, but then left that day. And then last year, I made my big move for the Jackie Robinson 30 to 45 minutes after I'd walked in. So I had 2 days of kind of just sitting around and looking at stuff because I'd already made my move for the Jackie. But this time was different because I still had the bulk of my resources going into day two, which was a really kind of a cool and freeing feeling. And I thought at the time that I would be focused primarily on trying to find the 48 Bowman Musial the second day, largely because, there were only a few handful of booths that really had a lot of WNBA cards, and none of them had that Breanna Stewart. So it was going to be the Musial or bust. So we get up the next day and we call an Uber because we were not staying at one of the hotels that were, adjacent to the convention center. We were, about 2.5, 3 miles away. We get dropped off, and for whatever reason, once again, we get really lucky and we get there before these ungodly lines happen. So we actually get in pretty quick, kind of just walk through the door. And I think this time they just gave them to you in line as you were walking in. Now, doors opened at 10 because we did not have VIP tickets. People who had the VIP tickets, they went in at 9, and we were with the commoners going in an hour later. And as we are walking in, I don't know why I even had my phone out at this point, but not only did I have my phone out, but I had Instagram open. I don't have my notifications on for Instagram. So, if Instagram's not open, I don't see messages or anything else until I happen to open it. But whatever reason I had it open, I'm going to pause right there and go back to set up what is happening here. So Wednesday night, I spent a lot of time in the lobby of the, I don't know, whatever it was, the Hilton or the Hyatt, sort of the big fancy one where a lot of people stay, and was hanging out with a group of people who collect basketball and a lot of WNBA collectors. And one of them is Carter, who is at MC Basketball on Instagram, an incredible A'ja Wilson collector. And he was on the show, boy, a little more than a year ago, about a year and a half ago now. I did this Caitlin Clark mega podcast before she had played her first game in the WNBA. And he was one of the 3 guests that I had on then. So we knew each other a little bit, sort of virtually. We got a chance to talk there, and I told him I was looking for the Stewart, and he's like, "Oh, great card, great card." And that was it. Fast forward now to Thursday. Thursday morning, we're going in. I don't know why my phone's open. I don't know why IG is open, but I look down, and just then I get a message. It was at 9:45 a.m. on Thursday, on July 31st. He sends me a DM. It says this: Booth 212. I feel like I remember you mentioning something about a Stewie last night, meaning a Breanna Stewart rookie card. He sends me this picture of a Breanna Stewart card, and it's Booth 212. I didn't even know where that booth was. It's just a massive place, kind of turning my map all different directions, trying to figure out where to go, looking at the ceiling at the banners that have the rows by number. And I did walk right by this booth on Wednesday, but I was looking, it was on the wrong side. It was almost like isolated from everything else. It was next to places to get water and food. And I walk up, and there it is. And there's the Breanna Stewart rookie card. He's got a price tag on it that seems way too much, but he only has 2 WNBA cards in his showcase, which tells me that he's not a WNBA dealer, and maybe I can get a pretty good deal on this card, not telling him that I probably would have paid full sticker just because I wanted it so badly. But we're talking, he was super friendly, really nice guy, and I'm asking about the story behind this card. Like, how did he get it? How long has he had it? He had this card, and he had a Jonquel Jones Rittenhouse rookie as well. He says that he picked it up almost a whole year earlier. He had bought somebody's collection out, but he had had the card for a year and could not sell it. He says he mostly just does shows, doesn't have a big eBay presence. He acknowledged that he probably had a price too high and was trying to start to knock it down a little bit. So I'm looking at this thing, and I look at the price, and I say, I'm interested, but I mean, can you do any better on this price? And I think he was just so relieved to have somebody who was interested. He goes, "Yeah, I can do this." And he gives me a number. And it was like 20, 30% lower than what the cards were, going for on eBay, which was great. And I just said, "Sold. Thanks. I'll take it." We shook hands, and I got one of my 2 major targets from the National, which was the 2016 Rittenhouse Breanna Stewart rookie card. Really beautifully centered. I don't understand why it got knocked down. There might be a little bit of tilt to it. That could be why. It's definitely not a 10, but I don't understand why it would not be a 9. I don't really care. I'm glad that I got it because it saved me some money on the price, which is just lovely. So that was how I kicked off day 2 at the National, and that was about 10 minutes into my experience. From there, I just almost felt like I was playing with house money. Usually when I get one of the big cards I'm trying to acquire at a show, inevitably what happens after that is my adrenaline spikes, and I start making what I would call aftershock purchases, which, first you have the big earthquake, but then this earthquake isn't quite over, right? There are these aftershocks that are hitting, and you just want to keep feeling the rush and feeling the rush. And so I started getting more things. I'd been looking for one for a really long time, a 58 Topps Hank Aaron. Whenever I found one that I liked on eBay, it was priced too much. And whenever I found one in my price range, I didn't really like the way that it looked. And really, all I really wanted was for the green to be pretty strong. There's a green background on the 58 Heron, and just reasonably centered. That's all I wanted. And I didn't really want it slabbed. I just wanted to put it in a vintage page of my binder. I go up and I find one, and it's really, really reasonably priced. But I can't help myself. It doesn't matter how reasonable a price is sometimes. I'm going to ask for more. And so it was a husband and wife team. The husband at this time was up on a ladder or a step stool. I don't know what he was doing. I think he was trying to adjust something with their booth. And so I was talking to the other person who was running the booth, and she's super nice. And I said, let me see that 58 Hank Aaron. And she says, okay. She takes it out. It was raw and listed at $80. No, I'm sorry. It was listed at $60. And I'm holding it up now. So spoiler alert, I got it. And it was asking 60. And so I said, would you go 50? And she goes, yeah, probably so. Let me ask my husband. And she says, hey, this guy is offering 50 for this. And he just gets really irritated. I don't know if he acts like he's irritated at her. And then he acts like he's irritated at me. But I think he was really irritated at himself, because then he mumbles something about, oh, I knew I should have priced that card higher. Yeah, sure. Okay. And so I got it for $50. It is the white lettering. So it is the more affordable of the two compared to the yellow lettering on this with the name. And I love having this card. From there, I'm walking around and I think, you know what? Let's see if I can find a 48 Bowman Stan Musial. Maybe like a low grade, high eye appeal one. Maybe I can get lucky and find one here. Well, funny thing happens. I find a booth where one is a little too much, but I could probably make it work if I, moved something or whatever. And I'm looking at it, and a funny thing happens. Holding the card in person, I appreciated the history of the card. I just wasn't moved by the card. And I just couldn't get my head around adding this card to my collection at the prices that people are currently asking. I think that Stan Musial is having a moment right now in the vintage community where he's starting to catch up to his contemporaries, Aaron and Mays. He's starting to catch up. I think people are realizing, like, wow, this guy was really good. I think part of the problem is he has no rookie card. He debuted around 43, 44. There were no real pack pulled sets at that point. So his first cards were 48 Leaf and the 48 Bowman, but it's not really a rookie card, right? It's just a first card. And I make the decision that I'm not going to get it. If you know what, maybe someday I will find a really affordable copy, but I'm not going to spend my money on it this trip. And that gives me a little playing around money. From there, I was looking for a 69 Topps Bob Gibson. And the reason why is I have a page in my binder in which I turn the cards around and I have the backs facing front. And I do this for cards in which there are statistical anomalies on the back or record-breaking statistical pieces. So if you know baseball, you know that in 1968, the year of the pitcher, Bob Gibson finished with a 1.12 ERA. And so I walked up to a booth and a vintage dealer that had just had stacks and stacks of 1960s cards, not quite rubber bands around him. He was taking better care than that, right? I said to him, do you have any 68 Bob Gibsons? And I'm looking for the worst one that you have. I want the lowest quality 69 Bob Gibson that you have. And he goes, low quality. And I said, yeah, I just want the card. I want to pay as little as possible. And he hands me a stack, and he's got like 8 of them in a stack. Sure enough, I find one. Here it is. It is off center. It's got some creases. You can't really see the creases. Not the biggest fan of late 60s baseball cards, but what I really wanted was the back, right? So there's the back. If you could zoom, you can see the 1.12 ERA there, which is just insane. There are 2 more cards to get. Number 8. And number 8 is the reason why this podcast is airing nearly in October, even though the National took place in July. I'm going to come back to it. I want to save that for the end because that's the biggest part of this. After I picked up card number 8, and yes, I'm being cryptic on purpose, I just have like this money burning a hole in my pocket. And I heard some people talk, and I know I've heard Mike Moynihan on his show talk before about how If he's bringing money to the National, he's spending that money at the National. And I had a little bit left. When I went home in 2020 during COVID to visit my dad, just to see how he was doing, he was kind of lonely, lives by himself. I ended up bringing my tens of thousands of baseball cards back. And I was not intending to get back into the hobby at this point. I was just intending to sell. I knew cards were starting to have a moment, and I thought I can sell these and make some money, which I did. And I also sent about 15 cards, 12 to 15 cards off for grading as I learned about grading, and I got it in just under the wire, meaning I got these 12 to 15 cards to PSA before the PSA shutdown. So lucky, so lucky. So I got them back in, I don't know, like 4 to 6 weeks or whatever it was. And sure enough, they came back. One of the cards I got was the card that I pulled myself of my 1989 Upper Deck Ken Griffey. Bought so many packs of that in 89 with my lawn mowing money, but just could not get the Griffey. And I finally got one, and I graded out, 30 years later as a PSA 7. Pretty nicely centered, I thought. I know I must have had some surface issues or whatever, and I sold it. And I wouldn't exactly call it a regret, but I kind of wish that I had my own pack pulled Griffey. But I also felt like, all collections need to have an 89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. But I was putting it off. I've been putting it off for 5 years because that card is so readily available. But I walked by one that looked nice. And so my last purchase at the National in Chicago was this 89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. and a PSA 9. It's in the old slab with the barcode, with the 0 in front of the cert number. And it looks great. Beautifully centered. The hologram on the back is exactly what you want it to be. And I just love having this card back in my collection. Okay, now let us get to card number 8. As I'm walking around, show is going to be coming to a close here in about an hour or so. I didn't have the Griffey yet. That was the 9th and final purchase. 8th, 9th, whatever number. But I'm walking around. I look into this vintage showcase. And what I see back there, what I see like almost buried, looks to be a 54 Topps Hank Aaron rookie. And it's not slabbed. I can kind of make out the price. And it is by a factor of I don't know what, by far the cheapest Hank Aaron that I've ever seen at a show. It's listed for 3 figures. And I'm like, can I see that? I'm like, is that what I think it is? And the dealer goes, yeah, you can look at it. It's just totally tons of paper loss on the back. And he takes it out and kind of just flips it at me. But the front looks decent. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, I'm all over the place today. If you're listening to this, it is a beautifully centered Hank Aaron rookie. There is a very light, hard to see crease near his forehead. You can kind of make it out. The color of the orange is just vibrant. The corners are good enough. And it looks to me that if the back was in decent shape, and I'll show what the back looks like in just a minute, but if the back is in decent shape, this card is probably a 2. And I'm really, really intrigued. And now let me show you the back. So if you're listening to this, there is significant, and I mean significant, paper loss on the back, and not just a thin piece here and there. It's almost like half the density of the card on the top 1/5 of the card is just gone. So whatever kid owned this card in the 1950s had this sucker glued hard into a scrapbook or something. But it starts to explain why it's not graded. And I said, what is the story with this card? He says, I'm consigning this from my brother-in-law's friend or something like that. Like the brother-in-law said, hey, I've got this guy who's trying to sell some vintage cards. Can you help him out? And he said, sure. And this is one of the cards. Now, there's another wrinkle to this. And that wrinkle is this. I'm going to hold this up. And he says, I tried to have this graded at SGC for him, but they wouldn't even take it. And what I'm holding up now is I'm holding up the label from SGC in which he tried to have it graded. And it says, no, they won't grade it. Reason why is too fragile to holder. No, too fragile to holder. And I did not know that was an actual category for why they would not grade it. So I'm sitting there, I'm going back and forth, I'm never going to get into an actual Hank Aaron high quality one because would take me a long time to save up for it. Plus, I don't really want to pay that much for a card that is so readily available. But it's Hank Aaron. How can you not want this card? And he has this price on it. And I said, will you take this instead? And here's my offer. I'm offering this. He goes, I can't go that low. I had my mind set on getting X amount, but I'll meet you at this number. And before I gave myself time to overthink it, I said, yes, let's do it. And so for the first time, I had a Hank Aaron rookie card. But I also had this weird feeling in my stomach, like, man, I just bought this card raw. It'll be amazing in a binder. But what if, a million years from now, my kids are trying to sell it? Then what? Would it even be viewed as being real? I don't know. So I decide on the way home, on the drive home, that I'm going to send it off to PSA and just request the authentic grade on it. That's all I wanted, just the authentic. I don't think this card would even get a 1, to be honest. I think that would be too high because of the back of the card. But I tried to go for it. I tried to get the 1. That's why I was waiting so long to do this recap, because my national experience was not complete until I got this card back. And so earlier this week, I finally got the card back. And I was in a good mood because, when the grade popped, they authenticated it. And so now if you see this, I have this just a beautiful 1954 Topps Hank Aaron rookie with a gorgeous front, centered, vibrant. The crease, you have to squint to even see it and turn it to the right angle. And then in the back, there's a paper loss. But it's nothing like that. It wasn't too fragile to hold her. I got the authentic on it. And now I kind of love it. It's the cards that you don't expect. It's the cards that sneak up on you that sometimes become the ones that you're most fond of. And I love now being able to pair this with my small handful of vintage cards, my Jackie Robinson Leaf rookie, my 54 Red Heart Stan Musial. I don't know if this card will be in my collection forever. At some point, if I want something more and I need to move something, this is one I would certainly consider. But I love the story behind it. I love that it worked out. And just being able to gaze at this is not a card I ever thought that I would own. So there you go. That is my 2025 national recap. I appreciate you turning in to The Shallow End, and I will talk to you all again soon. Take care.